Welcome to Crossing Phase, the first podcast featuring a Christian and a Muslim talking religion and politics. My name is Matt Hawkins. I'm a former policy director for the Southern Baptist Convention, and my friend John Pinna is executive director and founder of an organization called Muslims for Muslims. We've got a fascinating conversation lined up today with an absolute delight of a person you will soon see. But first, I need to heckle my co-host, John Pinna. For crying out loud, man, you're outdressing me on a podcast. What is up with that?
I just, this is it. I'm doing the New York business casual. So, the turtleneck, and I always, wear a jacket, and I always wear my topi because,
Right.
I've been doing this. You've been gone for 2 weeks on vacation now. So
I wish it was vacation. I wish it was vacation. I come back. I'm in a long sleeve t-shirt, and you've got a sport coat and a pocket square. Like, what is this? You don't give me a heads up about this?
I felt like bedazzling. Gosh. I felt like putting on some makeup this morning and showing off. I mean, sometimes you want to feel beautiful, and admittedly, I need all of the tricks of the trade. I have a face for radio. You have a face for television. So, we get more. The second biggest comment we get is Matthew married? That's the one we get. So,
yep, definitely. 14
okay,
years.
so just, so that's always the comment. So you've got you're face for TV, face for prime time. So I need all the bells and whistles, the tricks of the trade. So,
well, you're looking good, my friend.
No, I appreciate the comment, and I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate you coming back. I know that you were in the throes of all kinds of stuff right now. And
doctoral seminars, man. Doctoral seminars. My head was about to explode, but it was a fascinating and really rewarding week at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary, located in Wake Forest. It was pretty fun.
Yeah. So, like, profound questions.
The whole course was moral theology. Actually, contemporary moral theology.
Being a good witness?
That was related, but we were investigating a lot of different authors and thinkers over the last couple hundred years with respect to where morality comes from, where does it root, how do people become moral beings, different strains of thought, most predominantly within Christianity. So it's pretty fascinating.
So an intra-faith dialogue about morality coming from different traditions, or just the evangelical business?
Different traditions for sure. I mean, we got at least 2 popes in the mix. We had some liberation theology from South America. We had some social gospel stuff from early America. And then we had some what they call some folks called either neo-orthodoxy or Christian realists in Reinhold Niebuhr and a guy named his brother H. Richard Niebuhr, and then Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict. So it was a pretty good mix. And then a British guy named Oliver O'Donovan, who writes some pretty heady, robust stuff about Christianity and particularly church and state politics.
Nice.
And some pretty robust stuff. An ethicist from Princeton, late ethicist named Paul Ramsey. We spent some time in, and then hit some folks like C.S. Lewis, and some of these books are still on my desk.
Nice.
Also dabbled in something called situation ethics, which was big in the 70s, which is basically just consequentialism warmed over with some Christian language. But yeah, we were into all of that last week.
I thought you were on vacation. I'll be honest with you. I was cursing you out. I go, this isn't like the 4th vacation this year. He's the only guy I know that goes on vacation during Corona.
Vacation's in November. Vacation's a little later.
I'll be honest with you.
Coming, but not yet.
Kai, our publicist, we were going back and forth, and I go, is he on another vacation? So I was like, we got to see what's going on here. So, but I appreciate you were missed. So.
Thank you.
And I thought it's nice. We have a really sort of top-notch guest. It doesn't get any higher on the mountain than this guy. So Mr. Anwar Khan from Islamic Relief, who's a dear friend, about 30 years in the business of humanitarian work, both domestically and internationally, who has we've worked very closely together for I'd say the last couple. I don't know. I think we initially cracked the egg with the Dalai Lama event. But my organization, American Islamic Congress, when I was working there, worked very closely with you guys. I know our Project Noor, our college initiative, worked with Islamic Relief on humanitarian efforts domestically, as it was one of the approved volunteer activities. So I do remember that. But we're very gracious of you to join us, Anwar, and spend some time with us talking about your experience, focusing on faith in action. But I know you have a history with Matthew's organization as well. So welcome.
Thank you.
So we can jump right into it, yeah. Matthew.
Well, Anwar, just give us kind of the basic level of what Islamic Relief USA is, and how long you've been there, and what gets you excited about your work.
Thank you. Islamic Relief USA, it is what the name says it is. Islamic, we're inspired by our faith values, but we work with people of all faith and no faith, employ people of all faith and no faith, and help everyone of all faith and no faith. Relief, because we started doing relief work. This was in Britain in 1984 because of the famine in Ethiopia. So the first response that we ever did was from Muslim students in Britain trying to help people who were, by the way, majority not Muslim when they were helping them. Yeah. This is where we started in Africa from the famine in 1984, from the Ethiopian Eritrean areas. And our name is USA. Oh, by the way, we do a lot of development now. And some of the coolest development we do is to provide water through solar power panels to pump the water up deep from underground and help to turn the desert green. I've seen this, what we did in the Sahara, I've seen it in other places. And one of the coolest projects we did in the southern part of Africa is we didn't just provide water. We didn't just give them seeds. We didn't just help them to grow stuff. We made sure that everyone who's doing some of our new projects, we trained them against child abuse, against domestic violence. So we are putting our faith in action, not just by providing water, not just by looking after the environment with the solar power panels, so therefore fighting against the climate problems that we have, but also bringing families together and also holding people accountable. If you do abuse, you're going to be held accountable by the community, by your peers. But ideally, we don't want anyone to do any abuse, and we want to bring healthy society. So we're realizing that you can't just give people water and food and just forget about the spiritual aspect. Yeah. Everything I've said, Matt, I know you would say that that's also in Christianity, but you asked me, what am I doing? So also USA, we're very proud to be from the USA, and we started here in 1993, but we work around the world, and we were working in Africa, in Asia, and Europe before we came here. So I represent Islamic Relief USA. I'm the president and co-founder, and we are an American organization, 501c3, and we are part of the Islamic Relief Network. But we are a legally separate entity, but we work with our network in 40 countries directly. And then we work in some other country with our partners, including, you might be surprised to hear, Catholic Relief Services as our go-to in South America. And we're working with our friends in Hebrew Immigration Aid Service too, in South America, and also in Greece.
Yeah.
So that's very briefly, or maybe not so briefly, some of the work that we do and who we are. We started here in America with young people. We are not affiliated with any mosque or this is why when I talk to Christians, I try to explain that we are not like the Baptist Relief Agency or Catholic Relief Services or Episcopalian Relief Development, in that we are not linked directly to any church.
Okay.
So there's no Muslim organization that is over us. Okay. We are a big tent. We have very progressives on one side, and we have ultra conservatives on the other side. John knows this. So I think I'm one of the few guys in the Muslim community that is at ease talking to everybody. And because we've got that huge tent, because we do humanitarian work, I can do that. And we also work with our friends of all faiths. including not just our Christian Jewish friends, but our non-Abrahamic friends as well. And I'm trying to reach out to people who don't believe in any faith too. So we're a big tent for humanitarian work. We don't follow orders from any particular mosque. So that's just enough, Matt, to get everybody upset with us some of the time, but nobody all the time, which is good.
Right. That's good. That sounds like Baptist life, frankly. I just wanted to ask, which is the greater challenge, your intra-faith conversations and arguments, or conflict with those outside the Islamic faith?
Oh, I think it's the same with the Christian. It's our intra-faith.
Yeah.
I have more Christian partners than most Christian organizations do. It got so embarrassing that I was like, dude, we need to do more intra-faith work. So Islamic Relief is one of the few major Muslim organizations, big tent ones, and we're very proud to sponsor the Ummah Convention, which is a large Shia convention in America. So I wish that wasn't the case. I wish that there was more of us there. But we have been working with Shia brothers and sisters. We've been working with different stuff on interfaith. But to be honest with you, Matt, it's not the interfaith guys that are burning our mosques. It's not the interfaith guys that are spitting at our wives. That are threatening to kill our children. Okay? So for us, normally the problem with the interfaith work, Matt, is we're talking to beautiful people like you who don't want to harm us, who are trying to build bridges. So my thing is that the work that we do in intra-faith is not your kumbaya moment. I don't want to do that. I want to know, how can I help you and how can you help me to live our rich religious tradition, which is loving our neighbor? How are we going to have, Matt, those difficult conversations like I just went there? And I think that's why John asked me to come on the program, because I go there. Okay? My wife was spat out. And she was terrified when the last election happened. And she was like, is it safe for me to go after nighttime, when nighttime comes in, outside wearing a headscarf? And my youngest daughter wasn't sure about wearing the hijab. After the election happened, she was like, I'm not just wearing the hijab, I'm wearing the Muslim youth group t-shirt. Because she was like, no, because the people who were doing the hate, they pushed her to make a choice. I don't want anyone to be pushed to make a choice, Matt. I want people to be free, to true religious freedom. So I believe that we need to reach out. This is the work that we do. So the humanitarian work that I do is a transactional thing. Transformational is, because we're giving food and water. Transformational is when we do it together, man. So when we work with the Baptists together, we don't need them, they don't need us. But if we coordinate, won't God be more happier? I'm just saying, think about it.
And the impact will be larger,
So,
Well, and for me, it speaks to the theme of our podcast, is that especially in this day and age, we need people modeling collaboration across deep differences, right? And so I like what you said about you're not looking for a kumbaya moment where we kind of pretend we believe all the same things. Nevertheless, we are, as Christians, we're obligated to love our neighbor. And you have a similar commitment within Islam. And when our nation in particular, and certainly around the globe, but just our nation in particular, is really polarized and really we've not exercised muscles that enable us to talk across differences in a meaningful and respectful way that treats each other like neighbors. So I think the inspiration from that collaboration is really important, and I wish people could see that more. I think you clearly see it in spaces like you're doing in development work and disaster relief.
Can I give you an example of that?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is a beautiful project. So World Vision, as you know, comes from an evangelical Christian base.
Yes.
For many years, World Vision, Islamic Relief, we wouldn't talk to each other. I don't want to go into detail, but there's reasons for that, okay?
Sure.
There was suspicion from the Muslim side that World Vision was going to Muslim countries with the main aim of trying to convert people and not being straightforward about that. That was the allegation, okay? That pretending they were doing relief work and so on. And World Vision is much bigger than Islamic Relief. Now, there were leaders in World Vision and Islamic Relief that tried to build bridges a few years ago. But what was interesting was that at a UN meeting, we finally sat around the table. Then I got to know some of them. They came to my office. I had chai with them. And John knows, so my first thing is chai, tea. Yeah. Then if you hang around longer, we have kebabs. Okay. Oh. So then normally by then it's too late. I start to like you, you start to like me. So then from there, I started vouching for some members of World Vision. And they had this beautiful project, which was based on the Bible, which was using the Bible to fight against domestic violence and child abuse. Yeah. And it's called Channels of Hope to Protect Children. They then explained to me that according to their biblical scripture, if you have something good, you need to share it for the common good. They were trying to do their Channels of Hope with Muslims, but as you can imagine, it's not a good idea to have Christian theology to be explained to imams, right, as the way that they're meant to be doing. It would be better that they work with us like Islamic Relief. We then use their copyrighted syllabus and put Quranic scripture in there. Yeah. And we use the Islamic scripture. So to cut a long story short, I'm in Rawalpindi, which is just outside of Islamabad in Pakistan last year. And when I'm sitting there with an imam, and he's there with 40 widows. And he's there because he does like a spiritual class with them. And he told me about this amazing new project that Islamic Relief is doing with him. I said, what is it? He said, I'm using the Friday sermons. I'm using my Quranic study circles to explain to the women and to explain to the society against domestic violence, against child abuse. This is terrific. I said, that's great. What's it called? He said, Channels of Hope. I just smiled. And if I told him that this was initially, if he knew that this was from some evangelicals from the South in America, I don't know what his reception would be, but it's too late now, Matt. He loves it. So I told him, I said, actually, this is from our Christian friends. And our Christian friends, they did this program. And we are now, between Muslims and Christians, Matt, reducing the number of children who are being abused at home. Reducing the number of women who are unfortunately being beaten, different spouses. This is a beautiful thing in our different faiths, and we found a way to work together to make the world a better place. Yeah. This to me is the interfaith work that I'm talking about. I don't want you coming and reading my prayers and being felt like you just have to be polite. You read your prayers. Yeah. I read my prayers. You read your scripture. I read my scripture. You live it. I live it. How can we work together to live our own scriptures and encourage each other, compete for goodness, not for pride and arrogance, but out of love and compassion? Yeah. That's what it's about. This is what, to me, the interfaith work is about. Yeah. When people ask me, is the interfaith element of Islamic Relief? It's my same answer when they say, is there a youth wing? Is there a women's wing? No, there's no wing. It's part of our work. Yeah. John knows when he comes to events. John, how young are the people there?
Yeah, you have all ages, all sects, and then there's a tremendous multi-faith. I was sitting at a table with your 25 years, and before it was just a big multi-faith table. I think I had you next to me and your wife, but everybody else, it was I had the Catholics right next to me, so and so, everybody across the way, and but I wanted to ask you a question. So to help with our listeners, both and particularly on both of our tribes and our listeners, unpack the faith in action. You've been doing this for about, like I said, 27 years now. Faith is Islamic Relief is not faith based, but the origin is faith. All right, the action.
Actually, technically faith based.
Oh, you are faith based.
Yes, so our registration is a faith-based organization.
So you're a faith-based organization, but so unpack is how Islam views humanitarian assistance. Unpack your the impetus for you to make this your life's work, and from an Islamic perspective, because a lot of people are going to listen to this and they're going to say, "Oh, he's a unicorn." Right. So, which you are, you're a unicorn. Right. So, I'll say that. I mean, you are, but because, and for many reasons, your positivity, your life's work, the way in which you engage both Muslims and the multi-faith space, and how you stay the course on so many things. But I want to unpack that from a Muslim perspective. What is it that you see as the core tenets in Islam that drives you and the organization to go down to Hurricane Katrina and help different faith groups, people regardless of faith, because it's a natural disaster, and continuously innovate on humanitarian relief, both domestically and internationally?
Look, John, first I want to explain to your listeners, the Islam that your listeners who are not from, like you said, my tribe, the Islam that you know is not the Islam I know. It's not the Islam John knows. The Christianity you know, I believe is the Christianity that I know, because I grew up with amazing Christians around me. My high school teacher was a reverend. I went to church. I learned Christianity from Christians. I lived with Christians. I have a lot of respect because I've seen the good stuff. But if I wanted to just talk about Christianity and talk about the Crusades and talk about the burning crosses and talk about how the churches were involved in the slave trade, I could make Christians to be really bad. And what I said is all historically true. Yeah. And the flip side, everything I just said, I just put Muslim in there. So what I would say is, the Islam I learned, my first teacher was amazing. My first teacher has a master's in Islamic studies, was the only woman in her course at the time doing Islamic studies, and has a master's in it. That's my mother. And she taught me to love people, no matter what their background was, no matter what their ethnicity was. So my mother taught me to love people. I remember she got upset with me when I joined Islamic Relief, because my mother may be a good Muslim lady who teaches Quran for 35 years, by the way, for free, every single day, Monday to Friday, since my dad died 35 years ago. My dad died of a heart attack in my arms when I was 13. Mm. So I know that one may go at any time. I realized at the age of 13, I don't know if I'm going to be alive tomorrow. Remember, John, when they asked the Prophet, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and they asked him about what's going to happen in the future, he said, I don't know if I'm going to be alive tomorrow. So this is my answer. So I cannot live life thinking I'm going to be around forever. So I need to make a change now. So the Islamic principles of helping the hungry, helping the needy, taking the pains of others and putting it on your heart. My mother said to me, who brainwashed you? Why are you joining Islamic Relief? Who told you these revolutionary stories? I said, Mom, you did when I was 7, 8 years old. Then she went quiet. So my problem is, I actually do read the Quran. I actually do understand it. Have you seen those that rejected the faith? It is those that rejected the orphan and urgeth not the feeding of the needy. You cannot be a Muslim if you are not urging the feeding of the needy, if you are not helping the orphan. And it doesn't say what religion, John. Yeah. It is. And as a Muslim, I can't be a Muslim if my neighbor is hungry. There's another story of the Prophet Muhammad, which is telling us that if you have food and you're making a soup and your neighbor's hungry, add water to it and share it. Yeah. If your children have fruit, unless your children can share it with the neighbors, don't eat it outside. If you don't want to share it, then eat it inside. You don't even want your neighbor. And this is my problem with Facebook. And I keep on telling people, can you stop posting pictures of amazing meals that you're eating that the rest of us aren't eating? I want to see your happy, smiley faces. Well, not now and then, not all the time. because then I don't want it to be like showing off and pride. But occasionally share your happiness with us. But I don't want to see the focus on the food all the time, now and then. So I just remind everyone, from an Islamic point of view, we have to feed our neighbor. We have to help our neighbor. Our neighbor, no matter what faith they are, is our responsibility within 40 households. So my Islam is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, most merciful, most beneficent. We have to follow that mercy. We have to follow that benevolence. Now, for me in Islamic belief, I had a choice. When I grew up, I was told all the time on TV that I was a problem. I was a young Muslim man, a teenager, and I was being told that you are basically, your tribe are, remember this is the 80s, yeah? You guys are bad guys. Yeah. So when you saw us on portrayal on Hollywood, we were always the bad guys. We were the bad guys with the bad accents, the big beard, and screaming around. And if you actually look at the fact, here in America, at least immediately after 9/11, Muslims were more affluent than the average American and more educated than the average American. Why? Because a lot of the Muslims that come to America came from outside. And Matt, for us to come here, we had to be highly skilled workers to get the green card. We came on H-1B visas. We're your doctors, we're the lawyers, we're the high tech. Now we have a lot of low tech people, but they weren't allowed in. So the people that came in, literally here in America, we tried to get the best from the Muslim world. And then on top of that, you have the African-American Muslims who were here before the immigrants came in. Remember, Matt, Islam came to America in slave ships. There was no religious freedom for them. Right. They were forcibly converted to Christianity. So me and John are the ancestors, the spiritual ancestors of those slaves. Not too far from my house is a slave graveyard. Once a year, we do a funeral prayer for the Muslims who died there because they weren't allowed to have one 400 years ago when they were buried. So for us, I believe Islamic relief gave me an opportunity, John, to live a good life. And it's a vehicle for me to come closer to God by helping God's creation, which is everybody. And then there started in the 90s to be some kind of radical groups come. And my opinion was that the Islamophobes and the people who are attacking Muslims, they are a major recruitment for the radical groups. The radical groups and the people and the extremist guys who hate Muslims with their bigotry, they both agree Islam is a violent religion.
Yeah, they kind of reinforce each other, don't they?
Yeah, so they're on this side. They're on this side, they're on this side. Then I would argue that I was in the middle. And I was like, no, I don't believe Islam is a violent religion. It's in the same way that any religion is a violent religion. There's some elements which you can say that, and I agree, but it's the same as in other faiths. Now, I think I'm in the middle, yeah? However, my argument is these guys are actually brothers. Yeah. They're actually of the same, and I'm not in the middle, I'm opposed to them. Right. Yeah. So in the same way, Matt, do you believe in white supremacy with the Ku Klux Klan burning crosses?
Definitely not.
No, but they're using the Christian symbols. You have to. How can you be a good Christian if you don't agree with them?
Yeah, yeah. Now, thankfully, the white supremacy of more recent years, I'll say, is they're less likely to claim kind of the Christian symbols and that kind of thing. A little more, but
facts don't matter. I'm just being difficult with you. I'm saying this is what I'm dealing with. I wasn't having an intelligent conversation with you. This is not intelligent. I'm just saying that I can cherry pick negative.
Sure. Yeah.
And claim that I'm an expert on your history.
Well, and I like your metaphor with the paper. So for people who are listening via audio, Anwar held up a piece of paper, and you could see on one hand and the other looking like polar extremes. But then when he kind of bends it around like a horseshoe or a circle, and puts basically the extremists with one another. That metaphor, not the paper so much, but the concept of the horseshoe, kind of the horseshoe polarization, has gotten some traction within my circles as a way to visualize that. So when you have polar opposites, whether it's political polarization or religious polarizations, or like you're talking about, kind of extremist Islamic folks versus, say, white supremacist folks, they're not that far apart. The ideology is different, but in practice, they're a lot in terms of the ends of a horseshoe being very close to each other.
Driving around in big pickups, waving their holy book and their machine guns around. Okay, you will see that in places in America. You will see that in places in Afghanistan. They are very, very similar. They are very, very similar. You're then I would argue that people like us are more similar. Sometimes I'm more similar to I'm more similar to some of my Christian brothers than I am to my Muslim brothers. John knows what I'm talking about. Because I got some crazy brothers out there, and so did you. So those crazy brothers are not me. I remember getting annoyed with my marketing team a few years ago because they were writing in an email, at the end of the email, "This is Islam, this is Islamic relief." I was like, dude, we are not Islam. But then I understood what they meant. We are part of Islam. And I would argue we are more to do with the basis of Islam than the extremist stuff that you see today. So one of the 5 pillars of Islam is zakah, which is tithing. But our tithing is not like your tithing. Okay. According to for the Sunnis anyway, for our Shia brothers and sisters, our tithing is similar to the Christian tithing. Yeah. You saw I did that, John, yeah? So
I know. We already had the conversation. I think I mentioned in a previous podcast that how there's 2 moons in Islam.
Yeah.
The Shia moon and the Sunni moon, So we talked about the differences. So some of our listeners are aware of how things may get muddled a little bit between the intrafaith deal, and even within my tribe, the Shia tribe, there's such differences, So
within our Shia brothers, they have a very similar thing to the church, where that you give your money to the church, and then they decide to spend that money on amazing projects like the house of worship, your school, your food pantry, all of that. Within the Sunnis, we have a slightly different way. So our zakah is less, but it's only for certain categories, such as the women, such as refugees, widows, orphans, basically humanitarian work, freeing the slaves and this kind of stuff. Now, where do we get the money from to pay for the mosque and to pay for universities? That's called sadaqah, charity. Charity. And that we believe is a gate to heaven. So either zakah, tithing is a pillar of the faith, and sadaqah is a gate to heaven. So there are 8 gates to heaven mentioned in one of the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad. 4 are for all good virtues, but 4 virtues have their own gates. One of them is sadaqah, which means charity. So to me, praying and charity are different ways of worshiping God. So when you attack Muslim organizations for raising money for charity, you're taking away from my religious freedom. Like if I told you that you're not allowed to tithe to your local church, you would say that's a religious freedom issue, and you'd be rightfully saying that. So to me, John, you cannot separate charity. You cannot separate helping needy people from Islam. It's an inherent part of Islam, whether it's one of the 5 pillars or it's one of the gates to heaven.
No, it's this conversation and your comments are profound, because we don't get enough. We always get caught in the counterterrorism issue, right? We always get into this idea where all Muslims are on one side, and as an organization and as an individual, both of us have collaborated a lot with the multi-faith space on the idea of charity and helping vulnerable populations all over the world, regardless of what the impetus of the issue is. And Matthew's, Matthew we work very closely with. One of the things that I wanted to kind of broach and talk about, and I know we're limited time-wise, is how profound continuing the work is. You and Matthew both share a common issue. You guys are both in the game. You guys are both spending an inordinate amount of time helping not only your respective tribes, but helping the humanitarian effort. Matthew doing it with the podcast. I'll even say maybe with his PhD, we'll see what he does with it. I don't know yet, but certainly spending a good amount of time focusing on pressing what was his career at the Southern Baptist Conference. And you two as well at Islamic Relief. Both of you had a profound event. And I think that profound event in each of your lives shows not only your resolve, but also shows very, very similar two people from very different backgrounds. I mean, I always say, you're from West Virginia.
You got it right.
Normally I say Northern Virginia. So, the descendant of a long lineage of Mothman lineage, Mothman, but you guys are still in the game. You haven't retreated. You actually intensified your work. Matthew, maybe you could talk about what's going on or what's happened. Our previous conversation that we had before we started recording about both you and Anwar. I'm actually a third wheel on this conversation. So, right. Because I haven't yet experienced.
You want to stay a third wheel in this conversation.
Many would say I don't have one. And my argument is sometimes bad guys make the best good guys. So it is what it is. So
Anwar and I have learned that we are both heart patients, and both had not only experienced heart attacks, but the same kind of blockage, the lower anterior blockage, which they call the Widowmaker, and we both survived, which puts us in a subsection of heart attack victims of like less than 10% survival rate. Mine was in Washington, D.C. Anwar's, I believe you were at London Heathrow, thereabouts. And we both have survived, and I would feel healthier on this side of things. I don't know how long ago yours was, but I really loved how you talked about the medical care and the people that surrounded you to take care of your particular attack and got you to the other side of it.
When was each one of your respective events? When did it happen? What was the
Mine
date?
Was May 2018, Memorial Day weekend.
Mine is coming up in 2 weeks. My 3-year anniversary, so I think we were separated by about 5 months.
Yeah.
So I believe it was the end of October, beginning of November for me. I was on my way back from visiting Srebrenica, which is a mass graveyard. Before that, Sri Lanka, hearing about victims of violence. And before that, I was with the Rohingya in Bangladesh. And before that, I was with the Rohingya in Myanmar. And probably it wasn't a good idea to do that trip on my side. My heart just gave out. Look, I did interfaith work for many years as a student in the University of Birmingham in England. I was the first non-Christian to be the head of the Interfaith Center. I got 90% of the Christian vote. The Muslim vote was easy, but I got 90% of the Christian vote. Then I didn't really do what you would call interfaith work. I just quietly tried to do things with Islamic Relief and build up the capacity of the Muslim community, so that we would be better at doing humanitarian work. Then I started going back into interfaith work when I moved to DC in 2013. The heart attack happened in 2017. I don't want to hear from anyone telling me what Christians are like when I'm telling you that they were yes, they would be, one of them was beating me up. You know how? He was really pushing hard on the CPR. He hurt my ribs, but he saved my life. So it was a Christian that saved my life with CPR. It was a Muslim that when I arrived at the hospital, a Muslim doctor that said, Mr. Khan, you're going to be okay. The junior, the senior doctor were Muslim. The specialist was Sikh. The nurses around me were Christian, were Catholic from Spain. They were Protestants, they were atheists, they were white people, brown people, black people. All the beautiful colors that God created, he sent to save me. And it was an interfaith effort. I think it was the 500-year anniversary of the Lutheran Reformation. So they were doing, you remember that?
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, so I was meant to be there when they were doing the big event here in America. And then they said, sorry, he can't come. He had a heart attack yesterday. So I was flying back from England to the Lutheran event. Then I got the Lutherans, may God bless them, to pray for me when they had the huge event of 2017. I had the mosque, all of the mosque in New York praying for me. Then I found out that there were Shias in Karbala and Najaf praying for me. Then I found out there were people in Sudanese praying for me. In Sarajevo, they were praying for me. Jewish friends were sending me flowers. Christian friends, for some reason, were sending me British tea when I was living in Britain, which I was really, you do realize, so they said, you're British, you do realize I'm getting this tea every day from my mother. But anyway, it's the thought that counts. So I had Jewish, Christian, Muslim, interfaith, and I believe, Matt, I'm sure you had a similar experience. I had a life and death experience. And I had a conversation with myself as I thought I was dying. I felt like I was drowning, okay? So I had a cardiac arrest. And as you said, there's a 10% survival chance if you're by yourself. So I could have died alone in a hotel room and they would have found my body when it was a few hours later when it was the checkout time. The nurses kept on asking me, how did you know to call the ambulance? Normally people die of a cardiac arrest and heart attack. You know this without realizing they're having a heart attack. So there's a heart attack and then there's a cardiac arrest. So I believe that God has blessed me with a wonderful life. I have lived several lives. I did an audit, by the way, as I thought I was dying. And Matt, I was really being optimistic, John. I only did an audit of all my good stuff. I wasn't doing an audit of my bad stuff. So this is very optimistic.
I don't have a profound moment like that. I've been in a lot of near-death experiences. When I start to relive my life, it just goes from from varying tasty kebabs all through my life. That's all it is. It's just these wonderful meals that I've had, with
that
all
checks
my
out, John. That checks out. I believe that.
It does.
That checks out.
I went a different direction, John. So with me, I looked at all the beautiful places I went to, the different palaces, and then I looked at the refugee camps I went to. So I remember the volcanoes exploding, the earthquakes, and the crying and the devastation. And then I remember having wonderful meals and being at beautiful events. So I felt that I had been to several wonders of the world. I had been to several UN World Heritage Sites. Thanks to you and to God, I got to meet some of my heroes like the Dalai Lama. I also met presidents of America. I had a star in the White House. I got to see the Pope. I got to see different, and these are only the interfaith leaders. So I had, I believe, a very blessed life. And I felt that, if I need to go, I think I've done enough good. And then I saw an image of my wife and my kids and thinking, I don't want the same to happen to me to happen to them. When my dad died when I was 13 and my son was 16 and the youngest was 13. So 14. So I didn't want to leave behind a young widow and very young kids. So then I saw an image of the kids from Srebrenica that I had just visited. These are kids of parents that we helped. Then I remembered the stories of the kids whose mothers unfortunately were raped in Myanmar and who fled to Bangladesh, and the horrific stuff going on in here and other places. Then I asked God, do I have your permission to go back to be with my family and help them? And do I have your permission to come back to continue the work I'm doing of trying to help kids. So I'm not saying I had a conversation with God. I'm saying I had a conversation with myself, asking God. Then I was no longer drowning. I was fully conscious. So I believe that my time was done at the age of 46. And God, in his infinite mercy, allowed me to come back. Mm. And I'm trying to be a better person after that experience. Matt, what was your come to Jesus moment?
Well, my experience wasn't quite as intense. I was experiencing the heart attack. I wasn't quite going into cardiac arrest yet because I was in the hospital sooner. And thanks to, I don't know, but at least by way of distraction through social media, a colleague of mine who's an author within Christian circles, she had just been hit by a bus in Nashville, Tennessee as a pedestrian. And so I was aware of her situation the day before I was in the hospital. And so the way I was feeling, I'd never experienced, my experiences were, or my physical feelings were, my symptoms were kind of unusual. And so thankfully my wife got me to the hospital before I was in full-blown cardiac arrest, but she could kind of see the monitor, once they got me up hooked to the monitor. She said later, she told me she was looking at the rhythm above my head, and it was basically my heart pattern was degrading as time went along. But I didn't have quite the scare factor that you did. So it was a little I don't know, anticlimactic for me. But I did have dramatically changed kind of my lifestyle as far as working out and eating more healthy. As I think John may have mentioned, we left DC. We actually had made the decision to leave Washington prior to the heart attack. So when I was having this experience, I was like, really, God? Like, I don't need confirmation here like this, right? So I
remember our conversations before this happened, and you were thinking about leaving and thinking about separating yourself. I remember sitting, sharing a meal with you. Literally, I think we always ordered one plate and split it. And I remember having that conversation, and then I just thought you'd left. You know, so I just thought and then I found out what had happened, and it was, needing the confirmation is very, very different. But I know that you had that. I can see the picture in my head of the blockage, that you sent me.
Yeah,
you have
it
looks like an aerial map of Long Island or something, but it's
I have a little radiology. It's the radiology picture of the showing the pinched, the blockage, and then after the blockage was opened with the stent. It's pretty dramatic. Anwar might have another one, but all to say, like we were already talking about leaving Washington, and the pace of life was we knew the pace of life was stressful at the time. I had been sick a bunch, and we were weighing some job opportunities for me, and made some decisions. So that spring, we had actually decided to leave DC. The only thing that needed to be decided was kind of the timeline and how that was going to pan out. But the heart attack thing, and all of a sudden, working kind of in semi-rural Middle Tennessee, overlooking a Tennessee Valley for at least a period of time is far more attractive right now than trying to keep up with you guys in the urban Washington Beltway. So that's kind of a hint of my story.
You're very blessed. Your wife is very blessed.
Yes, indeed.
What if your wife wasn't there?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Or if she wasn't as much of a medical professional as she.
Oh, she's a doctor.
She is. She's a nurse practitioner,
there you go.
which I think is a little better than a doctor, quite frankly.
My mother would disagree.
I'm biased.
Yeah, my mother would disagree. My mother still hasn't forgiven me that I'm not a Dr. Khan. Her husband was a medical doctor. Her daughter is a medical doctor. I'm the bum of the family. I only have a BSc in biochemistry. And I'm not joking. She hasn't forgiven me to this day. But my
mother doesn't. My mother still treats me like I just graduated from college. Said, one day you're going to get a job, because most Muslims are what? doctors, lawyers, IT. I always say we have no computer problems. We know everybody. If we go to the hospital, we do all this. If something's wrong, we call our friends, right? And then we never have any legal issues. We always have a lawyer on the hook. So
I tell my mom, I'm not a doctor, but our organization employs a lot of doctors around the world. She's still not impressed. At the end of the day, it was nurses that were by my side 24 hours. The doctors would come once a day just to keep a look on me. But it was these nurse practitioners who were with me in the high dependency unit. I was there for 3 days, 24 hours. And I've seen again and again, most of the time, these nurses are amazing. May God bless your wife.
Yeah.
You were married to her for a reason. This may have been part of the reason that God chose you to be married to her. And you had the wisdom to listen to God and be married to the right person.
Yeah, that's precisely the way I see it, Anwar. In God's providence, I married a nurse, and he allowed me to have a nurse as a wife. So that's exactly the way I read it. I probably wouldn't be here today if it was not for her. And just to kind of
and ordained back in the day, But there's also a lot of mental illness that's really the primary reason she's there. Right.
Well, I also want to John's joke about and your all's joke about being Muslims being doctors. Look, part of my first meaningful engagement, I think, with Muslims was out of John's and my collaboration in the International Religious Freedom Roundtable. So I got to meet a lot of your tribe in my professional capacity. My wife wouldn't have otherwise had that experience, except for she worked at George Washington Hospital over in Foggy Bottom for a few years. And her entire team, I say entire, most of the doctors on there were Muslims of different stripes and different ethnicities, and really cemented a lot of good friendships there that were really special to us. As much as you
the most rural part of America.
Say again?
And I used to go to the most rural part of America.
Yeah.
And you will find Muslims. And they are usually your doctor, or they work in your hospital. But people love them. They don't realize they're Muslim.
Yeah.
I remember me going in rural West Virginia. I think there was a Stonewall Jackson hospital there. And I think it was outside of, is it called Morgantown in West Virginia?
That's where I grew up.
Okay, so 1 hour outside of Morgantown.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that hospital, but I grew up in Morgantown.
Yeah. So it was outside there 1 hour, Stonewall Jackson Memorial Hospital. And I called a Syrian doctor. This is in the 90s. I'm not making this stuff up. I said, Dr. Sabah, can you give me your address? For those of you who are too young to remember, in the 90s, there was no such thing as smartphones or GPS. We had this really old school thing called maps. So I said, can you give me the address on the map? And he said, okay, go to this. It's on this street. Dr. Sabah, that's great. What's your house number? I don't have a house number. This is how rural it was.
Yeah.
Dr. Sabah, and now I'm going to tell you guys something. There's a thing called the U.S. Postal Service. Not just Amazon, but U.S. Postal Service used to deliver things called letters. Okay, so I asked him, how is that letter delivered to you? And he said, the postman knows who I am. He just gives it to me. I have no house number. So I went to see Dr. Sabah in the rural areas, and the community, they love him. And people don't realize one of the reasons why there's so many Muslim doctors, man, is because America has a problem getting its doctors out of medical school to go to the rural areas. They like to live in the big cities where they get more money and there's a better, what they see as lifestyle, rather than a slower lifestyle in the rural area.
Yeah.
These are places often where it's less easy to drink alcohol, it's less easy to go to the opera. These are kind of things that Muslims are fine with. So you put a Muslim in the dry camp, he's like, great. You put
That's
a
pretty
Muslim
fascinating.
opera, he's like, I don't know what this opera thing is. So these Muslim doctors were coming from Pakistan, from Syria, all over the Muslim world. They were told that if you go to rural America, after 7 years, you'll get your green card and your residency. So when I was driving in West Virginia a couple of years ago, I noticed that the medical office had an Arabic name. So I would say to many of you, you do know Muslims they save your lives. You just don't know they're Muslims. You know that they're exotic people with different color skin and different kind of name. But when you equate Islam, it's not with the doctor that saved your life.
Yeah.
It's not with the nurse that helped you. It's with some crazy guy that you see on cable news.
Yeah.
So there are enough Muslims in all across America. I know because I looked at our donor list map. And there's also Muslims in the military. John knows this. Because I was wondering, why are we getting donations from so many areas in rural America? And then I realized these were either at US military bases or these were doctors.
Yeah.
So I would say to people that the Islam that you think you know is not the Islam I know.
And it's not the Islam that is the ummah. It's not who we are as a people, and it's not who we are as a faith group. You know, I'm the person that always says these are doomsday cults, just like anybody else, just like anything else. I always say that all those guys are doomsday cults, and they might claim it, but they have ceased to be Muslim. That's what I always say, and that's where I lose.
You go a step further than me. I can't say who's Muslim and who's not. I leave that to God. But I have, again, we have our opinions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. And we always have these conversations. Yeah. I always get into.
Yeah. So he's
I say, you want to know what? I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it.
They're really bad guys. So I will say they're really bad guys. And some of these guys, again, they definitely who are bad guys. Bad guys deserve to be treated in the way that they behave, whatever the law of that country is, whatever faith they are. Matt, when we were talking earlier about extremists, do you know which terrorist I grew up with that I heard about that were based off a religion? Do you know who they were?
Who?
I'm brought up in England in the 70s and 80s in the town of Birmingham.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Who are they? Which religion are the terrorists that were trying to kill me and people around me?
Yeah, IRA, right?
Yep. And IRA are Catholics, and Catholics are Christian. And who were the other guys that were trying to kill the Catholics? The loyalists, who were Protestant, that were killing. Now, you may argue, but Anwar, the IRA are not a religious organization. They're using the name of religion, Roman Catholics. The loyalists had definitely had a Protestant leaning, and both of them had some reverends and some fathers that were supporting them. In the same way that you would say to me, Anwar, yes, they are Christian, but they don't represent me. Yeah?
Yeah.
That's the same way me and John think. So we got our crazies, you got your crazies. We claim our crazies aren't part of us. You claim your crazies aren't part of us. Your crazies claim our crazies represent us. Our crazies claim your crazies represent you. Let's stop listening to the crazies. Yeah, let's go in the middle and live the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of the Prophet Moses, of the different prophets, of Jesus, of the example that we're told in Allah, the example that we're told from Buddha, the example that we're told in the Torah. Let's live our best version of ourselves.
That's a good one.
The world a better place that we found it,
Yeah.
That's a good word, Anwar. I can't think of better remarks to sum up our conversation than what you just said. We're delightful to have you a part of Crossing Phase today. Where can folks find more about you and Islamic Relief USA?
Okay, thank you. irusa.org. If you go to irusa.org, and if you want to find out more about me, I think there's some information about me on our website.
Yep.
You can go there.
Yeah, I've linked to some stuff on our show notes, so folks can come to crossingphase.com too.
Thank you so much. So if
we'll post some stuff. We'll post some stuff, but I think it's also important to say that if you want to volunteer and work on a multi-faith team, Islamic Relief is always looking for volunteers, and it's a great way to talk and touch the multi-faith space that we all have interacted with. And there's a volunteer button right on the website. and that's a call to action for whatever is whatever humanitarian effort is hot for the moment. I'm sure you're doing stuff with fires in California. I'm sure you're doing floods in Middle America. I'm sure you guys are doing all kinds of other stuff. Is there a particular request up right now if you want to help the people or help a cause and volunteer? Is there something particular in Islamic Relief that you guys are focusing on right now?
Right now, we got the floods in Hyderabad, we got the fire in California, we got the problems with the hurricanes in Louisiana. Our teams just finished one deployment in Louisiana. And by the way, Matt, you're going to love this. We were housed by the Methodist in Louisiana. So we went there as part of the, with our partnership with the Red Cross. The Methodists found out we were there, and we've worked with them in North Carolina. They said, please, we need assessment teams. We know you guys specialize in assessments for the Red Cross. Can you please stay in our area? They hosted us in the church. So what I would say is this, look, I'd love for people to donate money to irusa.org. I'd love people to go there and volunteer. We have people of different faiths. But I will say this to people, it's really important. Give money to your own church. Give money to your own synagogue. Give money through your own tithing system, whatever makes you happy. Give maybe a small amount to us. Give the major. I'm not here to try to compete with your faith. I want you to be better Christians, better Jews, better Hindus, better Buddhists, and I want people to be better Muslims. The real way that people can help, please pray for us. Please pray that God guides us to help humanity in the best way possible. Please use your tongue, use your fingers. Your tongue, when you hear someone saying, kill all the Muslims, or you see someone saying, why should Muslims be at an interfaith? Speak up. When you see someone type horrific stuff against Black people, against women, against any other group, use your fingers to remind people, this is not turning the other cheek. This is not the love that we saw Christ doing. This is, please, I want people, if you want to give money to us, that's great. If you want to volunteer, that's great. But please, at least when you hear people attacking us, tell them that this is not the American way. This is not the Christian way. This is not the Jewish way. If you just get people to reduce the number of death threats against us, that would be great. Matt, we have folders of death threats in our office. And we have training every year from the Alexandria Police Department that if someone comes, tries to do a mass shooting and kill us, how to evacuate. This is the first year for several years we haven't done that training because of COVID. Our staff have died in different parts of the world to help feed the needy, including our Christian brothers and sisters. Yeah. Men and women of different faiths have died in some of the most dangerous places in the world. Please, please, when someone tries to shut down John's religious freedom, the way that my brothers and sisters, Christian brothers and sisters can really help, please believe in religious freedom, not for yourself, but for everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, Anwar. And I think I can't think of a better moment to kind of close the conversation.
I'll take your money. I need your prayers more, and I need your advocacy. I ain't gonna say no to money, but that's my fault.
Well, everybody needs an infusion of cash. No one has enough. So, well, this has been Crossing Faiths. Thank you so much for taking the time, Anwar Khan. You're very gracious of you to spend the time with us and for you to share your experience, and your time and your thoughts with us, Matthew. Thank you again for taking the time. We really appreciate it. So
happy to do it. But yeah. Anwar, next time I'm in the Beltway area, I'm coming for that chai and kebab.
Kebabs, forget the chai. We'll go straight to the kebabs.
Straight to kebabs. All right, I appreciate it.
And then we'll have the chai after the kebabs. That's if I really like. Because it's too late now. I started liking you. So
we're already in kebab territory. I qualified for the kebabs.
And John will come too. John don't look sad.
Listen, I will. I'll invite myself if there's kebab. Islam is 90% food. We all know this. So let's do a broadcast from Islamic Relief. We should do that. That should be our next game.
That'd be fun. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.